It was difficult to get the sort of dark sort of feel here, and a lot of the set was missing, so we added a lot of parts to the set with Obi-Wan running around. This is the miniature again, with people shot separately, and then several of these creatures are computer graphics combined with the blue screen elements. We also had to do a lot here to darken this. Added the thing on the right for Obi-Wan behind. Originally it was quite bright back there, but just to keep it really dark and moody in the sense of him lurking around spying on these guys.
In this scene, standing next to Count Dooku, but it became apparent that we didn't want Obi-Wan to see Dooku and Jango together, because it would have implicated Dooku as the bad guy right away. And George felt it was important to keep Dooku somewhat ambiguous, that there would always be some doubt in the audience's mind as to whether he really did have a better idea for the galaxy. And therefore, it wasn't wise to show Dooku with Jango at that point in the film. He wakes up and burns through the tent to find his mother. There's a sound of him burning through the tent, and that is the only real sound recorded on the set for the movie that was kept. I have to say that I'm proud of that sound because my son, Benny, stood by with the DAT machine and recorded that sound.
The pivotal scene for Anakin, because this is reuniting with his mother and his youth, and at the same time dealing with his inability to let go of his emotions and allow himself to accept the inevitable of the fact that everything must change and things come and go through his life, and that he can't hold on to things, which is a basic Jedi philosophy that he is unwilling to accept emotionally. And the reason that is because he was raised by his mother rather than by the Jedi. If he'd have been taken, in his first year and started to study to be a Jedi, he wouldn't have this particular connection as strong as it is, and he'd been trained to love people but not to become attached to them. But he has become attached to his mother, and he will become attached to Padme. And these things are for a Jedi who needs to have a clear mind and not be influenced by threats to their attachments. It's a dangerous situation, and it feeds into fear of losing things, which feeds into greed, wanting to keep things and wanting to keep his possessions and things that he should be letting go of. His fear of losing her turns to anger at losing her, which ultimately turns to revenge and wiping out the village. Raiders is the first scene that ultimately takes him on the road to the dark side, and he's been prepping for this, but that's the one where he sort of is doing something that is completely inappropriate, which we don't see. We cut to Yoda, who is meditating, who hears this off screen, and we do hear a voice in there, and that voice is the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn. Very subtly establish that in this rather intense emotional connection that Yoda is feeling the pain and suffering of Anakin and the Tusken Raiders, he's also making a connection unwittingly with Qui-Gon Jinn. And up to this point, we haven't really established that you can make a connection with the departed in this world. And that will become a factor in the next one. Lots of issues sort of come out of that, but this is the very beginning of that. Yoda making a connection with Qui-Gon Jinn in the middle of Anakin's pain.
That was on the ship here was built from a vegetable steamer, and in the end we decided it was a little too obviously derived from a vegetable steamer, so we built a CG model of something that was a little bit more antenna-like, so it's replaced with the CG throughout the sequence.
A scene where after Obi-Wan leaves his Jedi fighter, Geonosians come down and abuse poor R4, the robot. They pull him out of his ship and kick him around and generally cause him great stress while Obi-Wan was away. It was a funny idea, but it didn't quite fit into the storyline. I had thought that fourth pillar in the arena, which is unoccupied, would have been a great place to have R4 tied up, along with the rest of our heroes, for torture or to be devoured by the monsters. It would have been very cruel to kill a robot. You can kill humans, but boy, a robot, no one would allow that. Our rating would go to, NC-17 if we did that.
Include R2 and give him something to do and make him a pivotal character, to be a vital part of the story, so that he's in lots of different ways a hero and a key player. A bit of him returning home. It tells you, again, we're building toward his revelation that he kind of went over to the dark side and is upset about it. But seeing his dead mother as he carries her off the speeder bike, seeing the look on his face, the mother dies, and then we just sort of go on to something else. The mother dies, and I have 4 scenes. A great deal of the movie actually centers around him dealing with this death, and his anger about it, and his sadness.
This scene is a very emotional scene, and it's very emotional also, I'm sure, for the fans, because they're very familiar with the garage.
I remember walking onto this set and also walking onto the set of the kitchen. And I got goosebumps because I'd seen it in images, of course, for years and years and years, and then actually be standing there. And it was important for us to see the blue milk. We all love the blue milk from the original movies, and there it is sitting on the tray. So we're back.
That's where, Luke is putting together C-3PO and R2.
Of course, Luke will be in here years and years later.
And so we had to be very respectful of what was it that we saw out of these garage doors. This, behind Anakin is a blue screen, and behind Padme is a blue screen. And what we see in there are matte paintings of different vehicles.
Garage here, we begin to see that what he's really upset about is the fact that he's not powerful enough. That if he had more power, he could have kept his mother, and he could have saved her, and she could have been in his life. That relationship could have stayed there if he'd have been just powerful enough. He's greedy in that he wants to keep his mother around. He's greedy in that he wants to become more powerful in order to control things, in order to keep the things around that he wants. There's a lot of connections here with the beginning of him sliding into the dark side. And it also shows his jealousy and anger at Obi-Wan, and blaming everyone else for his inability to be as powerful as he wants to be, which he here swears he will be. So here he sort of lays out his ambition, and you'll see later on his ambition and his dialogue here is the same as Dooku's. He says, "I will become more powerful than any Jedi." You'll hear later on Dooku will say, "I have become more powerful than any Jedi." So you're going to start to see everybody saying the same thing, and Dooku is kind of the fallen Jedi who was converted to the dark side because the other Sith Lord didn't have time to start from scratch. And so we can see that that's where this is going to lead, which is that it is possible for a Jedi to be converted. It is possible for a Jedi to want to become more powerful and control things. Because of that, and because he was unwilling to let go of his mother, because he was so attached to her, he committed this terrible revenge on the Tusken Raiders. The key part of this scene ultimately is Anakin saying, "I'm not going to let this happen again." We're cementing his determination to become the most powerful Jedi. The only way you can really do that is to go to the dark side, because the dark side is more powerful. If you want the ultimate power, you really have to go to the stronger side, which is the dark side. But ultimately it would be your undoing. But it's that need for power, and the need for power in order to satisfy your greed to keep things and to not let go of things and allow the natural course of life to go on, which is that things come and go, and to be able to accept the changes that happen around you and not want to keep moments forever frozen in time. You get a constant echoing back and forth of things. Where Anakin's mother died, or where she's buried, one can assume that Owen and Beru were buried in the same place.
And since the very first Star Wars film was released, to make scene transitions often using wipes was most certainly George's idea. The inspiration for these wipes comes from their use in the classic serials in the golden era of Hollywood, and I think the wipe is somewhat associated with the pulp style that these films are emulating. The wipes are all 32 frames long, and as to the design of the wipe on the 2 films that I've worked on as an editor, it's been up to the editor to pick one and give it a try and show George. There is a logic to what wipe you choose because you're looking at an outgoing image and then it's replaced with an incoming image, and depending on where you want the eye to go, you want to direct your attention to something in motion or something that enters frame on one side or the other. And so there is a logic as to what kind of wipe you would put in order to keep a smooth flow of visual information.
Jedi, in their sort of more mature wisdom, have a sense of how much danger that Obi-Wan is in and will eventually go and deal with it, but they don't see him as in imminent danger, where the kids do. So the kids kind of jump off immediately to impatiently go after him, and the others wait to kind of get a feel for the situation of what is actually going on. That's why Yoda says there's more going on there than we know at this point, which is a way of saying that you really shouldn't jump in there until you actually know what's going on.
You'll just have to come along.